history of the Kirogo. We now want to get into the session of tributes, and I'll be calling PS Kennedy Kihara to guide us in that session. And as you're called to give tributes, we kindly want to request that you be brief, precise, and to the point, so that we do not take too long a time in this service in light of the prevailing circumstances, so that we finish pretty soon. We'll really be grateful if you are brief. I welcome PS Kihara.
Bwana asifiwe. On behalf of all of us, we'll call a few people. We know we all have stories and testimonies of our relationship with the late friend, father, son, neighbor, colleague. However, we don't have that time, and therefore we'll just call a few people to represent the rest of us. And I want to start by a category of people we are calling friends, those who knew him away from public life, and those who interacted in his personal capacity. I want to start off by Madam Bete Gekonyo, and I would seriously want to reiterate what Reverend Evans Omolo has said, that if we can speak for not more than 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Wairimo, Samuel, Lynette, and Maureen, fellow mourners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is indeed a deep sorrow that fills our heart at this sad moment, a sorrow that is indeed deep and personal to each and every one of us whose life was touched by Kinyanjui. He has silently closed the door of life and departed from us. But life goes on for Wairimo and the children. I met the late Kinyanjui years ago through my late husband, Roiro. I caught up with 3 of them, Kinyanjui and 2 of his colleagues. And at that moment, my late husband was seeking guidance and counsel on how to navigate through government processes to deliver a certain significant project. The one thing that deeply touched me about Kinyanjui at that moment was his soft voice. Soft it was, but it was delivering potent precision on a roadmap on how to achieve this particular project. From that point on, I was accepted by Kinyanjui and 4 of the colleagues as a sister, and we have maintained respect of this privileged friendship over the years and spilling over to our families, children. And Wairimo has become a confidant of mine. And being a widow, I was left with people that I can talk to about things that I did not understand in government. And I have never hesitated to approach Kinyanjui for guidance and wise counsel. The next of Kinyanjui's great attributes that stood out to me and made a permanent impression was his amazing love of his best friend, confidant and soulmate, Wairimo wa Kinyanjui, or Gadaya Kinyanjui, as he fondly referred to you, Mama Kirogo. Provost, Gada means exceptional or remarkable. So you can imagine coming from a husband describing a wife. And Wairimo every thought of you brought a huge smile in Kinyanjui whenever he would narrate how you have brought up his children with Christ as your anchor, fully supporting him through and through, and how all of them have never let him down. Samuel, Lynette, and Maureen, your father was very proud of you, and he constantly spoke about you to anyone he met. You all gave him the passion to soldier on the good fight. We pray that God will continuously bind the four of you together with these same codes that Kinyanjui constantly held you together with. Do not allow any situation or circumstances to come in between you as a family, but continue to consult each other and stand together as a team. Kinyanjui was very spiritual, Provost. And some of the experiences that you have had this week, he was very spiritual. He would not preach to you directly, but his actions left you with no doubt that the God he served was an awesome God. We were assisting him with development of ACK Church in Kiserian. And in one of these discussions, he turned to me and asked me, Betty, have you checked with Gadaya Kenyajui what she proposes? Can we seek her guidance on this particular one? Because she's very close to the church and works very closely with the women of the church. And we would be negating from her norms should we go without seeking her guidance forward. Later on, when Kinyajui got sick, I severally called him to inquire on his progress. And the testimony he gave me was that Wairimu's compassionate and resolute dedication is tending to all his needs. It may be a wife's duty, as we swear when we are getting married, that through thick and thin, through sickness and in health, we shall be there, we shall stand, we walk, we what. But rarely do you get such a heartfelt testimony coming from an ailing husband, such as the compliment Kinyajui gave you, Mama Kirogo. He told me, Betty, the Lord's angel, Wairimu, and my God are working together very closely to bring me great comfort. So my sister, it is well, do not worry. I'm on the mend and I'll be back on my feet again. And it is at this juncture that I wish to request you all, my fellow mourners, ladies and gentlemen, even as the Master of Ceremonies has asked us to be sensitive of time, I kindly request you to be upstanding. Please, be upstanding. Help me in appreciating Gadaya Kenyajui for taking great care of our friend and by giving him comfort, love, and tender loving care towards his healing process. Kindly please give her a big clap. Thank you very much. Be seated. Kinyajui was a hallmark of quality in his service to we the people, Wajiko, brothers, sisters, Kenyans. I have interacted with people from all the way from Lokichogio, from Kisumu, from every part of Kenya in his office, who come with endless issues and none that was too small or too large or that was unresolvable by Kinyajui. He would go out of his way and relentlessly, persistently follow through, making phone calls to his colleagues to get this support and help that the person has made the trouble to find that this is the one officer that will not turn me back without a solution, This is the one officer who does not care whether his docket is in agriculture, in water, wherever it is. Kinyanjui will pick up that call and call his colleagues and ask, can you help us to deliver this solution to this particular person? He left no issue unresolved. I'm sorry, Chief, but he was probably amongst the last, most rare, and almost extinct of honest servant to we, the people, and to whom actually every problem was solved with excellent results in every situation. Kinyanjui was a life that not only exemplified brilliance, but also a life that inspired emulation, and a life that burnt so that other paths were lit. In all humility, he once requested a mutual friend. This particular friend of ours had made a great error of judgment. And he requested him to reverse the mistake he had made. I will not forget the words of wisdom and humility that Kinyanjui told this gentleman. Bwana fulani, tafadhali, tusaidie hii serikali yetu kuwakilisha wajibu tuliopewa. Tafadhali kuja tusuluhishe hili jambo. Leo, sio kesho. He gave this advice with a lot of humility, wise counsel, without demeaning his friend, but reassuring the friend that he'll walk the talk with him. Kinyanjui was a good purpose man who gave people a long leash of second and third chances. But most of all, he defended government to we the people, even as he gave us the wise counsel. He was extremely protective of government, and he would tell you what is possible and what is not, in such a way that you did not leave feeling that he had ignored or he was treating you in a condescending manner. No. He was royal to a fault. He was a perfectionist. Kinyanjui was a selfless man. Yes. He was quite satisfied with one cup, one plate. He was ever ready to give away the extra piece to the next needy person. He was generous but not extravagant. The value of a man should not be seen in what he gives of himself and not of what he receives. His personality resonates with his position. Fellow mourners, there is a statement we often make when we visit bereaved families, which goes something like this. The gap you have left is impossible to fill. No statement could be more true of Kinyanjui, indeed, than this statement. I urge you all, brothers and sisters, to always be there for Irimo and the children. Prayers do resolve a lot of all the above issues that we have raised, but please do hold them in prayers persistently. Kinyanjui had no tribe. He was a voice of Kenyans from all walks of life. We have to inculcate his great values for harmonious relationships in successions, at work, in church, and at home. And as a take-home from today, let us please be low and high, but in the Lord, and in the same unfaltering stamina as Kinyanjui left us. Fare thee well, our friend Kinyanjui. Until we meet again, rest in peace. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Betty Konyo. Unfortunately, you've taken all the time for all the speakers. I would kindly ask the following people who I'll call here, please don't read statements. We have been in the amphitheater for the last 3 days, and many of us got an opportunity to share our testimonies. So kindly, we want to observe all COVID regulations And I would really ask, don't read speeches, tell us something, 2 to 3 minutes. And now I want to ask a friend of Mr. Kirogo, who was with him for many years, Mr. O.P. Narang. And Bwana Narang, don't make us switch off the microphone because we don't want to take your 3 minutes. Please.
Jumbo and all protocols observed. My name is O.P. Narang. I'm an Indian from Bombay or Mumbai. I came to Kenya about 26 years back. I was the MD and CEO of agrochemical and food company at Moroni for about 17 years, longest serving CEO of a state corporation. 2 people helped me a lot. That company was making losses, we make it into profits. 2 people in this country helped me a lot. One was Mr. Stephen Kirogo, and another was Mr. Johnson Otenyo, who was Inspector of State Corporations. He was supposed to come, I don't know whether he has come or not. Whenever there was any issue in the state corporation, CEO jobs are very delicate, some small mistake you made and you were out. Whenever there was any issue or any problems, I used to go to Mr. Kirogo, please help me and guide me correctly, and he used to do that one. After that, he became the Chief Administrative Secretary. There also I used to call and meet him, and he helped me a lot. He actually wrote a letter, special letter to Immigration Department for me to make citizenship, of course, which was not granted due to some other problems. And thereafter, when he became the chairman of Kenya Public Service Commission, I used to meet him also. He was very articulate, very humble, very simple, and I used to joke with him, very, very nicely dressed also. He invited me he was fond of Indian food. I used to tell him I will invite you, but he invited me to Intercontinental for a food, and he paid the bill. It was very nice, very good in all aspects. His administration capabilities were wonderful, very helpful, very humble. I have a certificate issued by him for a very good training he conducted at Kenya School of Administration, which is all of here. A very good certificate, he gave it to all of us, which is here, which I show it to here, please. So I wish him all rest in peace and his family to bear this loss. And now I'll speak a shloka in our own language. Om Trambhakam Jajamahi Sugandhim Pushti Vartanam Urva Rokwim Vandanan Mrityu Mukshamrita. It means his soul should rest in peace, he should be embraced by God, and his family should have the courage to accept this loss. And Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you and God bless you, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Narang. We understood Om Shanti to say Kwaheri. So thank you very much. In his many roles, Mr. Kirogo was an authorized officer. Well, before he joined the Public Service Commission, he had the delegated powers of an authorized officer. And there are officers who worked under him, very young officers who he mentored over the years. And now we want to call 2 of them to come and just tell us how he mentored them. So we'll ask Mr. Jasper Ndioki and Wanjiko Wakoge in that order. In the meantime, the representative of the PRSK should be getting ready, and Mr. Eric Keraide. So Jasper, then Wanjiko, in that order.
Mama Kirogo and the entire Kirogo family, the head of public service, ministers present, fellow mourners. I stand before you today as a representative of a generation that Kirogo mentored. I say this because the year that Mr. Kirogo joined the public service in 1984, it's on or around the same year, a vast majority of us were born. And therefore, when we joined the service, we never deserved the honor of working side by side with him by the sheer number of years that he had worked in the public service. My first encounter with this powerhouse of a man was on or about the year 2013, when we were supporting in the transition from the third administration to the fourth administration. I was in the company of the man who was then to become the CS for Energy, Mr. Davis Chuchu. Went to Mr. Kirogo's office for facilitation in regard to the invitations for the state ceremony. And on that occasion, to a man who held no title, Mr. Kirogo's response to every single request from Mr. Chuchu was, yes, sir. I wondered how a man so senior in age, so accomplished, so senior in the office that he served in, would have such a natural sense of courtesy, such rare warmth, and such humility. I'd previously watched the popular British sitcom, Yes, Minister, and I was perhaps a little nervous that is the tradition that civil servants around the world employ, where every request from seniors and also from the members of the public have the natural response of yes, sir. But I was taken a little aback because every single request that we made for facilitation was granted, and he granted it with rare speed and zeal. On behalf of the generation that I represent, those that have been mentored over the last 10 years, we thank God for the grace and favor of having lived, of having worked under such a giant, a towering giant of our time, whose physical demeanor was a complete opposite by body size. A man who was so generous, who exercised high authority, what many would call raw power, with such rare level of humility and such rare commitment of service to the people of this country. To the family, we share in the great pain of your loss, and we pray that may the Almighty God grant you the strength and comfort to cope with the loss, for your loss is our loss too. God rest in eternal peace.
Good afternoon, everybody. To Mama Ann and your children, to the extended family of Mr. Kirogo, to the dignitaries and government officials present, ladies and gentlemen, I am here both representing the State Corporations Advisory Committee, where I now serve, and where Mr. Kirogo called his second home, but at the same time also part of the young team that was mentored and drew great inspiration and wisdom from Mr. Kirogo. SCAC was the second home of Mr. Kirogo from 2007. It was his home, it was his second home without a doubt. He was a staunch believer in the transformation of our state corporations and the roles that they would play in development. And his was a labor of love. He lived it, he breathed it throughout his tenure at SCAC for 5 years, and even after he left. Jane Mugambi and thereafter I succeeded him at SCAC, and I think I would speak for her and myself when we say we found and still have very big shoes to fill at SCAC. A lot of the work he did laid the groundwork for what was the reforms you now see in the sector. And even after he left, sometimes we would disagree on how to do a state corporation activity, but never on the why. And I think we are grateful for that purpose. As a young officer at Cabinet, as Jasper has indicated, we have had the rare privilege to serve under legends who mentor us and who support us, not just as our bosses, but they transform a little bit further, and they are our fathers. They are our champions. They are the people who are there to offer the support and guidance over and above any other space and opportunity. There's no such space I have seen or encountered in the public service like we have seen. And some of our legends are here, including Mr. Kirogo. And we would sit and observe and learn through stories the tenets of patriotism, the tenets of greater good and the public service, the tenets of giving back, because life in the service is truly about giving back, and he was the quintessential civil servant. There is no time critical thinking was discouraged. You were always allowed to come up with any crazy idea, and it will be given an opportunity to be heard. So for a young officer, that opportunity of stories that would then after that be crowned by a lunch at Tintin was most welcome. Mr. Kirogo was extremely tactical in how he managed his affairs. As Jasper has said, he was strategic. He was quiet, but he was very effective. I recall one time we held a meeting at the Kenya School of Government for chairs and CEOs. And at that time, it was just before the election, and we were worried about the spending of public resources outside of the process that is allowed. So we went there with a tough talking posture, and we were speaking very tough language of consequence and disqualification. And it was a very tense room that day. And Mr. Kirogo was coming to close for the day, so when he walked in and he read the mood in the room, he completely flipped the script from how it had been planned, and he charmed everybody. What was initially a very tough session was a lovely culmination of comfort and acknowledgement, of praise. And when we were walking out, I remember he told me, I'll say it in the way he exactly told me. He told me, Wajiko, niuramenya netuthuri toigana twina pacemaker in this room, and you're stressing them out with a lot of English. How many old men are sitting in these rooms and you are stressing them out and they have pacemakers? You have to learn the value of honey or vinegar. And I think for me, those were some of the greatest lessons we have come to learn. He's left an indelible mark in the state corporation space, and we will be lost without him. More than ever, as we mourn and we celebrate him today, we will go through a cycle of grief, of desolation, of guilt, of anger. But at the end of the day, we look to God to offer the peace that surpasses all understanding. And this is the prayer I have for Mama Kirogo and the family, that we will be able to look to him to offer that strength and support, and that his soul shall be received by the angels, and that we will look forward to him looking down on us as we continue to walk the steps that he has laid before us. I thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm standing here on behalf of the Public Relations Society of Kenya, to which Mr. Stephen Kinyanjui Kirogo was a member. Specifically, I'm representing the fellows of the society. This is the highest honor bestowed upon members who have made outstanding contribution to advancement of the profession. We were honored to have had Stephen in our midst as a fellow of the society. Personally, I came to know Stephen about 22 years ago when he joined the society as a member, and I was the chairman of the society then. Since then, we have enjoyed very cordial relations, and he has made significant contribution to the advancement of the PR profession, and for that, we regard him as a hero. He enabled the society to realize one of its major milestones since its formation 50 years ago, that is drafting of the Public Relations and Communications Management Bill, which embodies the aspirations of members of the society. He would accompany the PR leaders on missions to engage on the bill, including meeting several senior officers in government, a factor that gave confidence and faith to our intentions because he gave us the privilege of riding on his goodwill. We feel deeply indebted to our brother for the milestones he has helped us realize as a profession. We will miss his gentle and warm nature, which endeared to him to many regardless of his status in the society. To the family and friends, please take heart and remain comforted as we celebrate his life. From all of us at the PRSK, we also pray that the Almighty will grant you strength and fortitude during this trying moment. Eternal rest grant unto Mr. Kirogo, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon him. May his soul, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen.
Mrs. Kirogo, Sami, Lynette, and Maureen, the clergy who have hosted us today, the head of civil service, Dr. Kinyo, all other senior government officials, the governors, all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen. I have known Mr. Stephen Kirogo as an elder brother and my senior in the civil service. He never liked being called boss, although he was my boss for a long time, since the 90s. He was a brother to me, a friend, a neighbor, and it is difficult to talk about him, but in the interest of time, I'll say a few things. When I joined Mr. Kirogo directly under him in 2016, I remember the way he would talk to me about retirement, investment, the way you talk to me about my children. And I tell you one thing, this man is one friend who never considered it an intrusion into my privacy to remind me to treat my wife and children with love and care. In terms of public service, I first interacted with Mr. Kirogo while serving as an officer commanding Anti-Stock Theft Unit Mobile Operation Group, then stationed at Ngarua Police Station. Bandits had stolen 11 cattle from an elderly widow who had 3 of her own children still in school and 2 grandchildren to look after. The stolen cattle were their only source of income. Those days, shortages of fuel and dry ration were regularly experienced, so you couldn't send a patrol out for very many days. It was therefore the silent practice that if you lost cattle to bandits, you would be requested to assist in the investigations. You know, Gari, Pesa ya Mafuta, I'm sure some of you know that. This was a very tricky affair for field commanders because it was expressly against government policy, and it got really complicated when the victim was a poor peasant like the widow I'm talking about. You risked serious accusations of corruption, not forgetting that you could not guarantee the victim that after spending the bigger resources left behind by the thieves, you will recover the stolen animals. It was common practice that after such initial investigations, the case would be left pending under investigation, even when there was a possibility that the animals could be restored and the thieves brought to justice. These are the circumstances under which he came to the police station. He never introduced himself. He inquired about the matter, and once he understood my predicament, he supported a team of 10 officers from his own pockets and fueled 2 government vehicles for a continuous 11 days. On the 12th day, we recovered the stolen cattle and restored them to the widow. To date, I feel the satisfaction I experienced when I brought those animals back to that widow. I learned later that the widow never came to know where the resources to recover her stolen cattle came from. And even in the later years, Mr. Kirogo himself never entertained what I considered a test of humanity. When Mr. Kirogo was appointed the chairman to the Public Service Commission, I sincerely felt he was the best person for that position, because after interacting with him since those days in the 90s, I felt he understood public service in a manner very few people do, and those of us still in public service should endeavor to. His uniqueness in public service made him verbalize something I had noticed for many years. It is a poorly kept secret that senior and seasoned administrators will often tell lies, not really in what they say, but more often in what they won't say. In conversations we had, Mr. Kirogo demonstrated a rare sensitivity to the moral implications of deceitful conduct and its effect on the long-term public confidence on the entire idea of government, while reminding me that governments had every responsibility to remain credible and honorable. Mr. Kirogo used to caution that citizens are sharp, and so a lie must not be spoken for it to be apparent. Those who have said about his sensitivity, his honesty, about humility are really correct. He never went for making short-lived impressions. In the interest of time, I'll just go to the last paragraph. Finally, I knew Mr. Kirogo as an innate national security professional. One day, we were discussing police reforms, and I was trying to convince him how much we have reformed. He asked me one question, which I admit bothers me to date. In which police station in Kenya can I go and see a reformed police station? He asked me that question. It still bothers me, and I hope I'll be able to answer it one day before I leave the service. To everyone who loved Kirogo, especially to the family, I tell you, the Lord giveth and the Lord has taken away. And I know those are not all the minutes, so I will sing one paragraph. After all, some people are already dozing. There is coming a day when no heartache shall come, no more clouds in the sky, no more tears to dim the high. Oh, is peace forevermore. Oh, that happy golden shore. What a day, glorious day that will be. What a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see. When I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace. When he takes me by the hand and leads me to the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. Today I believe Jesus has taken Kirogo by the hand and he is showing him through the promised land. Just before his last stint in hospital, we had a chat and he told me, Eric, I am with Jesus. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Jasper Mbioki, Wanjiko Wakoge, the gentleman from Public Relations, and Mr. Eric Kiraide. These were people who worked directly with Mr. Kirogo, and their testimony is so important because many of us are good at pleasing our bosses, but we don't know how to handle our juniors. There is that popular saying, up and down, you know what I'm saying. And now we want to go to the final phase of the testaments that we are going to listen to. And once Mr. Kirogo left the office of the president, he transited to the Public Service Commission as the chairman, and his able deputy. The vice chair is Madam Charity Kisotu, and I want to have her here tell us what happened to him. We knew him when he was in the office of the president. Maybe he changed when he went to the PSC. This is a lady who worked most closely to him as his deputy, Madam Kisotu. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Bona MC, the family of Mrs. Kirogo, all protocols observed. My name is Charity Selena Kisotu, the Vice Chair, Public Service Commission, and the Deputy to our late Chairman, Mr. Stephen Kirogo. Before I pay our tributes on behalf of the Commission, I would request that you allow us, Bona MC and the clergy, just to play a very, very brief clip in honor of our late chairman, because that was the last station that he served. Kindly, we are very, very conscious of time.
Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. This quote by former United States of America President Barack Obama epitomizes the ideals and character of the late chairman of the Public Service Commission, Mr. Stephen Kinyanjui Kirogo.
I, Stephen Kirogo,
the astute and long-serving administrator with an impeccable record of performance, has left an indelible mark in the public service. Mr. Kirogo had an illustrious career spanning over 35 years in the public service. His determination to succeed in whatever endeavor he undertook portrays a man who was driven by a strong desire to serve based on a strong foundation of values and ethical conduct.
the public service is so critical and central to the prosperity of the citizen. Therefore, reform within the public service is an imperative, and we have to take that as a way forward.
Mr. Kirogo had an illustrious career spanning over 35 years in the public service. His determination to succeed in whatever endeavor he undertook portrays a man who was driven by a strong desire to serve based on a strong foundation of values and ethical conduct.
We want the citizen to benefit from the work of public servants, and therefore these excellence awards form one way of encouraging everyone to perform optimally in ensuring that the citizen is a happier citizen wherever they may be within Kenya.
His appointment as a chairman of the Public Service Commission in August 2018 capped a career that began in 1984 as an assistant secretary in the office of the president. A man full of vigor and zeal, the late Kirogo rose through the ranks from humble beginnings as an administrative officer to the high office of chairman of the commission.
Digitization of public services is one area that we will want to focus on. It's very critical in making sure that services get to the citizens in real time and everywhere in the Republic.
Mr. Kirogo had a peculiar sense of humor and a unique way of simplifying issues even when faced with difficult situations and complex decisions to make. He punched above his weight.
We have brought into the public service about 6,000 youth as interns, because We believe that we need to create a solution to this perennial problem called youth unemployment.
A transformational and visionary leader, Mr. Kirogo was passionate about improving the public service delivery and ensuring that citizens got real value from public institutions. He believed in walking the talk.
We have set up a contact center, and the contact center basically is for enabling Kenyans to give feedback on a timely basis on the services they get, the frustrations they go through as they attempt to get services from public offices, and that feedback will reform our basis for making the necessary reforms that give citizens the services that they deserve.
He was at the forefront in advocating for the implementation of a measurable performance management framework that is underpinned by values and ethical conduct.
And what we want to do and how we want to deal with it, make discipline part of performance. And we have put it in our regulations for performance. I don't want to use this word, but we have more or less criminalized indiscipline.
This is the legacy of an administrator who believed that nothing is impossible and had faith in the reform agenda for the public service through a citizen-centric approach to service delivery.
Kenyans are the ultimate winners when there is good performance.
Following his death on the 14th of May 2021 after an illness, there has been an outpouring of grief and messages of sympathy to the family and the Commission. Senior government officials and colleagues at the Commission eulogized Mr. Kirogo with emotional tributes that pointed to a man who was highly regarded and will be missed dearly. Fare thee well, Stephen Kinyanjui Kirogo.
Thank you so much. That is what Mr. Kirogo meant to us at the Commission. Fellow mourners, I stand here today on behalf of my colleagues, commissioners, and staff of the Public Service Commission to remember and eulogize the late Mr. Stephen Kirogo, who until his demise was our chairman. The loss of our chairman was received with profound shock and sadness by the entire fraternity of the Public Service Commission. As we remember and honor our late chairman in this funeral service, the Public Service Commission once again wish to say pole to the family, friends, former colleagues, and all of us. The late Mr. Stephen Kirogo joined the public service in August 2018 as the chairman after a long and illustrious career in the public service. I had the honor and privilege of working with him very, very closely as his deputy. From January 2019, when my colleagues and I joined the commission, it's unfortunate that we only had 29 months to work with him. The opportunity we had with Mr. Kirogo was short, but full of a lot of learning, focus, inspiration, courage, resilience, sense of urgency, care, and love. We treasured our chairman, our leader, our champion. He was a father figure, a mentor, a resource to all of us. Indeed, we considered him a moving encyclopedia of knowledge and information about the public service. To us commissioners, in the boardroom was a classroom because there was always something new to learn. In the boardroom, I used to sit on the left hand side of our late chairman. And next to me is Dr. Mary Muyandi. And I remember many times we used to ask ourselves, or Mary used to ask me, after the board meeting, Madam VC, shall we ever graduate in this class? Because there was always something new to learn all the times. Our late chairman created and rolled out an ambitious reform and transformational agenda, which we have been rolling out. During this short period of working with Mr. Kirogo, we learned a lot from him on how to handle and deal with the public service.